So what advice would you give to OTs who are thinking about taking the plunge of starting their own private pay practice?
I say take the plunge.
Do it scared.
Do it scared. You have the conviction. You had the idea. Why did you have that idea? I think you do because you're meant to do it. The one thing I kept telling myself is when things were kind of getting harder right before I, did sign on for private pay MBA, and it just felt like there were crickets happening. I just thought if I give up on this completely, I will regret that I believe you can do it despite imposter syndrome. If the goal was to help people, they got to know about you. You can't help anyone if they don't know about you. I needed to get more educated on marketing and messaging and systems to have them in place. And because those end up being, now looking back, what really helped me move the needle and helped me feel confident and made me feel like a real business owner.
I am thrilled to share with you today my interview with Isabel Hartonian, who is an OT based in San Jose. Isabel is a recent graduate of my program, Private Pay MBA, and in this interview, we talk about how her private pay practice has gone from basically not having any clients to fully booked in just 5 short months. In fact, at the time of this recording, she had just moved into her brand new office space to keep up with the demands for her practice. Isabel started Thrive Maternal Care after years of navigating her own postpartum challenges and trying to find support. She is a licensed occupational therapist who is passionate about pelvic health and helping new moms reduce all of that postpartum overwhelm. Her professional background is actually in pediatrics, working with children and families in early intervention, home health, and clinics. Supporting parents has always been at the center of her approach, and she's been in OT for the last 15 years. So she lives in California with her husband, 2 kids, and pets. She loves karaoke, cheering on her kids, traveling, and listening to books and podcasts. Enjoy. I am so excited to be talking with Isabel today. Isabel, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Doug. Thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited to talk with you today because you are an alumni of Private Pay MBA, and you came into the program, I think, having already established your practice and everything, but you were still in the early days of attracting clients. And now your practice is full and you just signed a lease for an office space, which is behind you, which is incredible. So tell us what's happened in the span of really just the last 5 months of your practice.
Yes. So I am really excited that when we look back, it's been 5 months, but a lot has happened. My main game changer was I found my most consistent referral source. And I came in with that workshop flyer that we made in the program, and it bounced off an idea where she already was going to have group prenatal presentations and invited me to do it. And I was eager. And so I've been doing those consistently once a month, and meeting that provider who happens to be an OB, plus doing the workshops. Those have definitely been the things that have moved the needle for me. I also started a collective with 2 of my friends that I've met through networking over the last year. So perinatal chiropractor, a postpartum doula. We just decided that where we are in the Bay Area, it didn't seem like the perinatal providers really knew each other. So that was kind of our mission. And all 3 of us are newer business owners and more, kind of still more newer into the niche that we're helping in. So that almost created like something not only that my offerings from my business, doing pelvic floor therapy or maternal wellness, like that's one offer, but that when I was networking, I had this other offer to relay to the provider of that we're starting this collective, people are showing up, we'd love for you to join us. And that did create more comfort in dealing with the anxiety of the imposter syndrome, because
Yeah.
suddenly, in a way, kind of put control back in my hands and with my colleagues' hands, and then people start showing up. So the, then social media, I ended up deciding to invest in having a social media manager. And that also moved the needle. So it was overall, I feel like creating a sense of authority
Yep.
about the subject matter, that people started noticing that the OB that I work with now, she is big on it, social media. So that also helped. She kind of follows her clients. So when she would post things about me, thousands of her clients that she's had in the past or currently would see it. And then other providers would see that I was doing group, talks for her. Um, and so it's hard to say, but it was through the generosity of meeting other people and then also me working through my own fears in reaching those people that really made it more likely that people were now going to actually call me
Yeah.
and work with me. The other thing that I changed was I continued business coaching. So after the private pay MBA course finished, I decided I still need that accountability, because if I didn't, I don't think I would have kept pushing forward with different steps or new ways of looking at why am I doing certain things. And so one of the big changes is I re-edited my discovery call over and over. And I also would go on like entrepreneur Facebook groups. I would get advice there, but I kept trying to change it so that it really did what it was supposed to do, which was supposed to bring clients in. And I'm going to brag a little bit, but my rate of conversion is 100%. That
Wow.
hasn't been that way since March. I still almost can't believe it, but I lead with what do they want help with when
Yeah.
I steer it immediately to why are they calling? What would they like to get out of pelvic floor therapy? How's it impacting their life? I've tried to come up with questions that help them realize, to connect the dots, that what they're talking about has actually impacted many parts of their life. And then I've learned the process of promising, like, that their pain points can, if not resolved, can be managed or supported in a newer way. And I don't bring up prices. Sometimes it almost feels like they're about to hang up without knowing what the price was. And so I still want to be transparent because that's important to me, but it's changed the entire dynamic. And yeah. And so then I think, and then I moved to an office space, which is my last big thing of deciding that there are parts of mobile therapy that were beginning to kind of not be for me anymore. Like carrying a massage table was beginning to cause some aches and pains, and um, having needing a separate place to really focus on business stuff, which was harder for me to do at home with two kids and pets and all of that. So that I went for it. And I also took everything I learned from doing mobile therapy to be able to decide like how big of a space I needed, what do I actually need or want. And I've already started seeing clients this week in here. So lots
That's
of changes.
that's absolutely amazing. It's like such a transition over just a 5 month period. And you said a couple of things in there that I wanted to just highlight again. And I think one is the community workshops that you're doing, and just being able to, like, when you go in to speak with providers, to show up with authority of like, hey, I'm speaking on a topic that I'm really passionate about, that is establishing my expertise in the community. I think it does two things. Like, one, it makes you just more confident to go to the meeting because you have something to share with them. And then second, they look at it and they're like, wow, Isabel is showing up in the community. She's connecting with people. I have actually something I can send my clients to that isn't a 90-minute eval straight away. It's a way for them to interact, which I think is really valuable because it builds that community. Like, you're in a real life community with real humans, and the more we can connect like on a human level with the potential referral sources, I think the better. And then the second thing you mentioned is the discovery call scripts. So, like, one of the things that we talk about a lot in private pay MBA is not focusing on selling sessions, because like almost nobody wants sessions. They just want their problem solved. And it's it's an interesting thing because we work with a lot of OTs who struggle with sales and the idea of being sleazy. But when you get on a call with a prospective client, it's really just reframing the conversation. As you said, what are the things that you're concerned about? What would make a difference in your quality of life? And being able to improvise a little bit on the call to go, oh, they're bringing this up. Actually, this thing that I do can really help them with that. Let me make sure that I bring this up and put it in layman's terms for what the client really needs. And I think once that happens, you start having a real authentic conversation with them. And that's quote unquote sales, but it's not sleazy. It's really just getting them closer to their goal. So I love that you're doing that.
Thank you.
A lot of the OTs that I speak with who want to start their own private pay practice talk a lot about confidence or a lack of confidence. And sometimes like we can put confidence up on a pedestal and think that it's something that we have to have before we could do anything else. But you've said something really great to me before, which is that you figured out that you can be scared and still do it. So, and I think that's a really powerful reframe. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. What I realized when I was reflecting on my whole journey with confidence is that I tried it the other way. I tried doing what I thought was a little bit easier or gentler to me, my nervous system, all of it. Maybe meeting the providers that were a little more maybe at the same level as me, like doulas or whatnot. And I did always value the fact that we have to do community outreach. That fit well in my ethos, but I was terrified. I mean, to the point of stomach aches, my heart rate on my watch would go up, all of it. And also just a mental block. And the first 6 months of having my business, I kept saying almost even out loud to different people, like, I still need to reach out to, usually it would be like doctors, but I haven't. And so I just knew I had a mental block, and I couldn't get over it. And it was comforting to hear that advice that you just have to do it scared. I kept hearing it over and over. It was in your coaching, it was on certain podcasts I listened to, and then the additional coaching I had, where we all have imposter syndrome. I think as women, especially, I think I ran into a very validating article about why sometimes it's also very woman-centric, to feel like you're an imposter even though you have qualifications, and we tend to downplay what we're able to do. So it was just finding different kind of sources like that to validate that, to make it feel like I wasn't isolated. That was kind of the first way I chipped into that problem. And then the other way was just acknowledging that the opposite wasn't working. So
Right. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to stay where you are.
yeah. So with that said, I started listening to like almost whims that would come up like internally, like if I would have an internal thought. And one of my biggest breakthroughs was I was scrolling Instagram at 11 at night when I should have been going to sleep. And a parent educator that was local had great posts. And to be honest, I had been kind of scrolling but kind of enviously of like
Yeah.
what he had established. And then I just decided to click the message button, and I just cold direct messaged her about whether she would like to meet, that I love her page. I always start with like what I love about what they're doing, and that would they be willing to go for coffee. And that was, months of thinking, do I email? Do I do handwritten letters? Like how what do you do a phone call? Like I would get so stuck with like, what is the first way to do this thing that was the most scariest to me, which was marketing and networking. That really was where my confidence was hit the most. But that she was welcome and supportive. And that's so far what I found, is that if you keep putting yourself out there, you'll meet the right people who care about what you're doing. Like some people still may be confused even now, I'm months in, who are referring to me and still maybe confused about like what my title is, but they know what I'm offering. And all that matters is that they feel comfortable with referring people to me. And so doing it scared. And then the first time, and then that person linked me to the OB. And so you have to put yourself out there. You may be rejected, but somewhere in that putting yourself out there will be the pinpoints, the type of people that want to connect with you. And even today, I met with a local acupuncture clinic that for some reason wasn't on my radar, even though they are local and quite large, but they were so kind. And again, I started feeling nervous, even though like I didn't really prepare for the meeting because I was beginning to feel more confident. It was just supposed to be really casual, but I began to get nervous about how I'm explaining what I'm doing. And they didn't need that from me. And they were so calming and grounding. And really, they just were another woman-owned business wanting to connect with another woman-owned business. And people are curious. And so if you keep putting yourself out there, you'll meet the people who are curious and want to actually find out what you're doing. There may be people out there that judge, or like, what the thing that I was most afraid of with the confidence was that I was going to get called out, that you shouldn't be doing this, and I'd be rejected. But it actually hasn't happened. So knock on wood. And it was through that practice that I realized a lot of this is really in my head, and it's not as scary as it all seems.
Right.
And so it takes practice.
Well, and I
And
think,
well, and then just the last thing is that in preparing for some of these things, I'll still have the very physiological like nerves, but I just tell myself that I got to do it through it, basically.
right, you can
Yeah.
absolutely still do it. And I think one of the great things is like when you meet those, the way that you kind of know that you've met the right referral source is they're just as happy to meet you as you are to them, because you're offering something valuable to them. Like you are also a solution to problems they have that they probably wish they could have solved for their clients a long time ago. And I think you were right. You said it like it's when you put people up on the pedestal as being different than you create that gap. But then once you realize that actually you have just as much to provide them as they have to provide you, because you're assembling this fantastic team in service of your clients, it makes it a little bit, I think, less scary, in the sense that it's just like, look, I'm here to get to know you as much as you're here to get to know me. And I want to make sure this is a good fit for my clients, because I don't want to send them to someone that I also don't believe in, and that's fantastic. So in the beginning of starting your private pay practice, there's like 1,001 different things to do, and it's really hard to know what to prioritize and what matters, and kind of being able to step back and look at the 30,000-foot big picture so you don't get into analysis paralysis. What would you say are some of the big anchoring principles you've used to be able to get clarity and overcome some of that analysis paralysis?
So it was the steps that we did in private pay MBA, which are figuring out who you want to help and really describing that out on paper, getting clear on what that person will require from you, what's the right approach, what would the pain points be, what would their concerns be, to then, and doing research. Like I would go into mom Facebook groups because moms are my primary clients, or I go on Reddit and I go, there's a pelvic floor one, and I just like to lurk around and find out what people are saying, because it's such value to figure out, because that's then the type of promises I have to make. Those are the things I have to help find solutions for. And then that helps guide me into like, what will my approach be? And then how will I market that approach? It will be with that approach. So for me, it's really focusing on that I'm really offering holistic care. And that what makes me different is that I have a mental health focus in regards to people's problems and dealing with activities of daily living. And that has made it easy to communicate to clients. It's made it easy to communicate to whoever I'm networking with. So that was kind of the process. That was a big anchoring principle. The other one was to have systems in place. And I know some people feel a little iffy on investing in like electronic medical records, but at this point, I am so glad I did it early on before I even had consistent clients that I would actually need to have it for. Because now once I started getting going, I already have the systems in place that are so automated. They've only helped me
Yep.
in really being ready for that influx, whether it's quick intake processes and consents and the way I want to do certain intakes or evals, the things I want to ask, because those are the special touches of my business, how I'm even inquiring about information. And then later it's you kind of talked about the client life cycle and private pay MBA. So it kind of bleeds into that anchoring principle of really creating a tailored, high quality service so that, everything looks really professional up front, but also after every session, I put together like a quick document of like a home program explaining things in layman's terms for them as to what my findings were. I have their goals, up at the top too, because that's really important. And then, things are really categorized for them to always be able to find. And and then that goes into the hospitality element. So I'm available via text. I create pretty much a texting comfortable relationship with all of my clients. I started making notes in my system, my electronic medical records, to follow up with so and so 3 days after their first appointment to see how they're doing, or follow up a week after. And so having that whole system in place is what keeps having me show up really professionally and keeps everything moving. And if I had to do things all over the place using Google Docs or like a website over here, like different things, it would have confused me even more.
Yep. Well, I love the focus that you have on the hospitality, because I really think that's almost become a lost art in this day and age. And you hear a lot of customer service nightmares and everything else. And especially if you're working in a large clinic, the service may not be at a certain quality because, well, they just have so many clients and there's so much billing that's happening and there's so many different staff that I think providing a really customized and nurturing relationship with your clients is going to just fuel your success, because everyone craves to feel special. Everyone craves to feel taken care of. And when you are an OT and you can provide that level of service for your clients that they can't get anywhere else, like that's going to make you really remarkable. And it is making you really remarkable. And I think it's contributing to a lot of the success that you're having. So referral sources are a big fuel for private pay practices, and we've talked about this. So could you talk a little bit more about what's working on that front for you with referral sources?
So for my main referral provider, I consistently show up for her and she makes it really easy. So there's something to first really opening up again, your net and casting your net and finding the right people, because when you do find the right people, I feel almost like I can't even take the credit sometimes for how things have gone, because other people have really been supportive and helped with that. So for her, she has the group prenatal workshops once a month. For me, they're so fun to do that, like, she'll always thank me. She can't compensate me for them. I'm just having fun doing them. And now I've actually gotten 2 clients just from the workshop alone. And I think being like available to the referral provider, doing the workshops, I engage on Instagram with her. She'll share some of my posts. I'll share things. I'll even DM her like new ideas. She's really into a certain type of labor prep course, which is so great that an OB is really interested in that. And so I've been like sending her more accounts, and then having the collective was a really big piece as well. So all of these things are just me showing up into the community, everything you kind of said before. engaging with people on Instagram. Like I'll leave comments on other providers, then I'll reach out with, this is my olive branch that we have a collective, come join us. There'll be their chance to network with a whole bunch of other providers, but it's just keeping my name out there. And then the most recent thing I did was this past Sunday, there's a big nonprofit birth and family provider organization, and it's a tabled event. And I did one in September last fall, which is where I didn't get any clients from that, but I met my friend who's a postpartum doula, who then started the collective with me. So then this one, there were people coming up to the table that were just trying to network. I saw some people I've networked with before who haven't sent me clients yet, but they were there, like a nurse midwife who actually does deliver at the hospital. And this is like the third time now she's seen me. And it's becoming more comfortable I feel more comfortable because I look familiar to people who I have attempted to in the past, like a certain counseling group that I've tried to reach out to. And then they saw me at the event on Sunday, and now we have like a new thing to discuss. And so it's a showing up, being a really reliable person in the community, that you're not scary, you're not shady, you're not doing any sleazy sales.
Right.
That when people were coming up to my table, I just knew that other people were noticing that too, that like I'm legitimately like someone that is interested in helping other people,
Right.
and I have interesting solutions to it. So that's what I would recommend, is
Yeah.
to do all those things.
Well, I think you raise a good point, which is that sometimes it just takes time and it takes multiple interactions. Like sometimes you may meet with someone and knock it out of the park and have that really great connection, or other times it's just, oh, you've seen them at the event, you've gone to a workshop they've hosted, they see what you're doing, and like any relationship, it just requires nurturing, and some require more than others. And I think it's a good reframe to go, okay, well, just because it didn't work that one time doesn't mean it doesn't work. I just need to, the door's not shut. I just need to work on getting myself out there. They need a little bit more evidence. They need a little bit more time. They're also busy, and not getting discouraged just because it doesn't work that one single time, I think is fantastic. That's great advice.
And I want to add to that, and to normalize that one may have thoughts like that. Like the first time I had touch points with certain providers, and nothing seemed to come of it, I did get down on myself and a little worried, or I would kind of process through, what did I say, or did I not get my meaning across, or, are people just busy? And, but I did have thoughts about that.
Yeah.
And then it's really only through practice that I start taking things less personally, like me showing up again, oh, there you are. And then like realizing that they're probably really busy or flustered, or haven't necessarily found the specific meaning to what I'm doing. It hasn't resonated, but that's okay, because then by the third time, it's like, oh, I'm still here. And there's
Not
still
going anywhere.
people that want to ask me questions. That's like the ideal client, the people who would want to come to the table. And so just with practice, you
Yeah.
realize I'm not for everyone. And eventually, maybe I will be for some providers or some clients. It just depends on when those people are ready. And maybe at another chance, I'll find some other way of expressing something that will resonate. But it just, you got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you mentioned like when they're ready, and I think we forget about that like we're also like we are dealing with humans, and sometimes they may need a lot of interactions, or they may need a lot of social proof, or they may need to see you in the environment with your peers, with another colleague that they really respect, and they're like, oh wow, she's talking with so and so, I really like so and so. Like, and it just all helps to influence the interactions, and what they think. And so I think you're absolutely right. It's totally normal to get down and to second guess yourself, but also like think about all the other interactions that you have with people. Like people are people at the end of the day. Sometimes it just takes, more time. So,
Yeah.
um, so one last question for you. So, because you've been very generous with your time and you've provided so much value. So, what advice would you give to OTs who are thinking about taking the plunge of starting their own private pay practice?
I say take the plunge. Do
Do it scared.
it scared. You have the conviction, you have the idea. Why did you have that idea? I think you do because you're meant to do it. The one thing I kept telling myself is when things were kind of getting harder right before I, did sign on for private pay MBA, and it just felt like there were crickets happening. I just thought if I give up on this completely, I will regret that I would almost give up on this completely, because the conviction came a couple of years before, just this idea of wanting to help moms function in everyday life. It doesn't come out of nowhere. So that's reason alone to try.
Right.
I believe you can do it despite imposter syndrome and fears that people don't know what OT is, which these were common threads. I mean, it was even a theme of my meeting this morning. But you kind of realize that ultimately that doesn't matter. If the goal was to help people, they got to know about you. You can't help anyone if they don't know about you. So that's why I think you should really listen to the conviction. And then the other piece of advice would be to really, take some business coaching. I personally plan on continuing. I find so much value in having a coach that allows me to move back to that, would you say like that 30,000 feet
What
kind
view?
of,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like having an OT to run an OT business, or a coach to run an OT business. I needed to get more educated on marketing and messaging and systems to have in place. And because those end up being, now looking back, what really helped me move the needle and helped me feel confident and made me feel like a real business owner. So do it and then find a business coach.
To help. Yes. Yeah, it's the whole, and we talked about it in the course, right? The who, not how, right? So you can, rather than ask how to do it, ask who already knows how to do it and can help me figure it out. And you just can short circuit, you can collapse 5 years of experience down into 6 months, into to 12 months, and help you avoid some of the same mistakes. And I think that you had a really great piece of advice, which is like, listen to that inner voice. Like, there's a reason why you're thinking about it, and if you don't do it, then you're probably going to regret it. And people do really need your services, and if you're not going to be the one to do it, then who's going to be the one to do it? And you're fully capable of learning these skills and getting yourself out there and having the incredible impact like you're having in your community. So I want to thank you again, Isabel, so much for joining us today. This has been amazing, and I know other OTs are going to get so much value out of your pearls of wisdom.
Thank you so much. It's been a blessing to have you be part of my journey.
Thank you.